Hey Donner, what's going on? Where's the studio audience?
Oh, you really pissed him off with your crowd noises.
Oh, this will be fun. All right, I heard you. We got fewer crowd noises coming today, but we've got a great video coming your way. The HSW Vigero ZX, Vigero, I don't know what it's called. I've called it all three things in the last video. This thing is an absolute handful. If you're wondering why it took me a little while to get this video out, well, you're seeing it on the screen here. It is pretty crazy to drive on my track, but it is fun once you get used to it. Just takes a while to nail down those laps. If you're new here, this is everything we're testing for, and we got some good stuff coming your way. I'm going to show you this car versus the HSW S95. We're also going to compare it to the stock, or I guess not stock, but to the non-HSW Vigero ZX, which you're seeing here. And I'm going to show you a split screen with some other cars too. So you'll have a really good idea of how well this thing performs by the time we're done. This first drag race, we're just taking a look at the HSW versus non-HSW. HSW is faster. That shouldn't be much of a surprise. The surprise is by how much. You know, in drag racing, when you're talking about seconds, that is a massive difference, and that gap is absolutely enormous. We'll take a look at the quarter mile, eighth mile, and half mile times here in a second, but this is the big battle here in this video. We want to see how this thing hangs with the S95. S95, understandably, a great car. People absolutely love it. We're going to see how these things do with the drag strip. The S95 is really fast here, but the Vigero ZX beats it to the 8th mile line. We're going to see if he can keep that going. It actually extends the lead on the way to the, quarter mile line. And then we're going to go all the way to the half mile down here. You'll see the new Camaro is insanely fast. We're talking about a top 5 car in the game that it just beat. So how fast is it? Well, third fastest quarter mile car in the game now, but you're looking at the fastest. So it is fast, but yeah, that's a huge gap still between the Cyclone 2 and the Vigero ZX. We got the Vigero on top for everything. 8th mile, quarter mile, half mile. It's a second and a half faster than the original version to the quarter mile. That's absolutely nuts. That's a huge difference. So this thing's got a lot of power. But now we want to see how that translates to my Speedway. What's this thing's top speed, or I guess average speed around the custom Speedway? It was a handful here too. That back end loves to slide around. Even with the spoiler, it can be a little difficult. And the S95, it's really fast here. We're talking 157 mile an hour average around this oval. Is the Vigero going to be able to keep up with that? Well, let's check it out. We're going to see here. It's close. 155.1 was its average speed. That's pretty impressive. Those cars are very fast. You can see much, much faster than the non-HSW Vigero ZX. Now I want to see how well this thing handles. We know it can slide around a little bit, but can you control it? Can you use that power and make it around a technical track with a respectable lap time? That's what we want to see here. First up, we're going to test it out against the original non-house version of the Vigero. And you see through that first section, especially once you get on that longer corner and you can put the power down, it really pulls ahead of this original version of the car. This car is a lot of fun in both forms, I will say that. The Vigero ZX regular version is a little bit easier to handle than this HSW version, but as you can see in this video here, the HSW version is quite a bit quicker. As we go through some of these longer sweeping corners, once you can get that power down, it makes a pretty big difference. Now, pretty big in racing, you're talking about half a second, a second, a minute would be huge. That's a big gap in racing. You can see the gantry, it is way down the track compared to the normal version of the car, something we would expect, but just a good idea of how much better it performs here at my test track than the normal Vigero ZX. So now it's time for the big test. We want to see how it does against the S95. The S95 can be pretty difficult to drive too, but it handles really well once you get used to it. We can see there, getting through that hairpin, it looks like the S95 has a pretty good advantage. The Vigero is going to try to keep up, but it can't quite get to that gantry at the same time. We've got some higher speed corners coming through here. So if we're able to keep the power to the ground in that Vigero ZX, it might be able to catch up. It hasn't quite yet, but maybe coming out of this hairpin, going through the long sweeping right-hander, we'll see that power come into play. The problem is, where in the S95 you're able to actually put some of the power down through the corners, you just can't quite do that in the HSW Vigero ZX. And you'll see that as we come through here, you really have to throw that thing around to get it through corners quickly. It's maybe a little bit wide coming out of the corner because I'm trying to keep it going, but it understeers a little bit, then it oversteers. It's not even on the straightaway by the time the S95 finishes, but that S95 does a 55-second lap here, which is insane. So how does it handle the Buffalo STX? This is the big question. Can it keep up? Look at where they are in that corner. And now check out what happens down this really wide turn going to that first gantry. The Vigero actually catches and passes the Buffalo STX. The Buffalo STX and the Vigero ZX are two complete opposites. The Vigero ZX is fit for a straitjacket kind of crazy. The Buffalo STX doesn't have a whole lot of power, but it doesn't really matter because it has a 57-second lap time compared to this HSW Vigero, which is under a minute, which is really impressive. It's better than I was expecting. That's really good, and it's much faster than the stock version of the, I keep saying stock, than the normal version, but it's not quite as fast on the track. What does that mean? Well, it's still over a 100 speed score because it's the top three, or the third fastest quarter-mile car in the game. That's insane. Really high top speed, but if you're racing, it would actually be really interesting to see the difference between that car and the Buffalo STX on a track, because one car would rip through corners, the other ones would tear down a straightaway. I'd personally love to see that. This new Vigero ZX is really fun in both trims. You're talking about the HSW version or normally, it's a lot of fun. The HSW version is insane. It's gonna be difficult to drive. Getting a lap like this around a technical track is near impossible, but it's rewarding when you do, and it is fun to drive on the streets of LS. Really, there are a lot of good things about it. When you're sliding around, it's fun. I probably would say that the Buffalo STX is still a better choice in races, but you're looking at the third fastest quarter-mile car in the game. That's just insane. For that reason alone, this thing is absolutely awesome. Thanks so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, you're here and you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. Let me know what you think in the comments too. Thanks again, and I hope to see you next time.